Welcome to the Punting is Winning podcast. Just two fans talking all things Hawkeyes. Here are your hosts, JD and Keith.
Welcome back, Hawkeye fans, to Punting is Winning, the All-Iowa podcast. We are your hosts, Keith and JD, as we wrap up the regular season for the Big Ten Conference and most conferences. I think the only regular season game left is Army-Navy, and that's going to be after the conference championship games as well. So, which traditionally that's the way it is anyway. But been a very interesting roller coaster of a season. It didn't play out quite the way we expected it to. Still finished 8 wins. That's a respectable 66%. I know people will say, "Oh, that's being a homer. You're settling for mediocrity." A lot of teams would be happy to have 8 wins right now.
But I think with what we had coming back, I think that's what people are a little bit upset about is, we brought all these kids back on defense and we thought we had a better quarterback than what we really actually had. And we thought 10-2 was probably not beyond the realm of pretty distinct possibility. And it didn't happen. 2 losses to teams you probably should not have lost to. Of course, both on the road. And I know it's hard to go out west and play, but, that's, still, you had that game until the very end, and not really had it. You were in the game until the very end, and then the Michigan State game. I don't know if you can scratch your head and say whatever. Not sure what happened to that one, but
that's on the defense, in my opinion. That was, the offense isn't great, but the defense didn't even force a punt. So
yeah,
that was just the worst defensive performance I've seen out of an Iowa team in several years. Now they righted the ship afterwards, for the most part. Until they got to the UCLA game. That was another suspect defensive performance. You also had some guys, Jay Higgins getting hurt didn't help. Getting your starting quarterback hurt, bringing in a guy that hadn't played all year long to try to lead you to a comeback win. Odds were probably against you at that point anyway, but still, you lost by 3. Take one of those two. You're 9-3. You're 7-2 in the conference, and we could talk about that later when it comes to postseason play with that. But there's just a lot of what ifs, but still a lot of teams that had higher expectations or as high expectations as we didn't finish where we did. So
look at Oklahoma State.
Yeah.
I think there was a lot of people predicting them to be right up there to Big 12, right up in the top 2 or 3, and they were bad news, man.
Florida State.
Yeah, Florida State.
They win 2 games.
Yeah, bad.
And that's coming off of a 12-0 season last year. You win 2 games the next year.
Let me ask you this question real quick before we get much further. Ryan Day, does he get fired for losing to Michigan again?
Those people get fired, that's a possibility.
Those people at Ohio State just won't handle that at all. They'll be like, "All right, we gave you one last year. You didn't win. This year, you're going to have to win this because Michigan's down this year." And they go out and lose to him again. They may be pulling the rug on him.
Here's the thing that I say about it is, will they fire him? It's a possibility. Should they fire him? No. 66-10.
Yeah.
You fire a guy being 66-10 just because you've lost to your rivals.
But that's where the expectations are.
I get it. I get it. I mean, if
we are Ohio State, right? That's what they say. The Ohio State. You can't be losing 4 games straight to that team up north, they say, because they won't even say their names. That's hard for them to take.
I get it, but and again, it's Ohio State, so pretty much anybody you bring in is probably going to be in that 66-10 range anyway.
No.
You haven't really seen anybody take a drop off since. Tressel had a couple of bad years by their standards, and I think that was maybe an 8-5 year. So I don't know. Should he get fired? No. Will he get fired?
Maybe.
It's a possibility.
There is a possibility. They don't handle that very well over there. Just losing anywhere.
Let's cover our question of the week last week, which was covering traditions on Thanksgiving Day. Had some people say they play some cards. Some people I don't remember. Somebody
Play
said
kickball.
Kickball, yeah. Yeah, I was like, well, that would have been a little cold for this year for us. But
Yeah.
I think our Thanksgiving tradition this year was changing flat tires.
Yeah. Yeah, we had to change 2 of them, didn't we?
Yeah.
One on your son's and one on mine.
Vehicles. Yeah. So let's hope that's not a trending tradition.
Well, I'm putting new tires on coming early this next week.
Yeah. So
at some point.
But yeah, I appreciate people kind of chiming in on what their traditions are. As far as ours, I don't know that we really have any other than just we traditionally get together and have Thanksgiving dinner and sit and watch football and, maybe play music trivia on YouTube or something. That's kind of what we do. And because we're not fans of those teams that play on Thanksgiving Day, unless they're playing our team. I'm kind of indifferent about what happens there. I mean, I guess I watch the Lions because of the Hawkeye connection on there, but other than that, I have no allegiance to the Bears other than the Hawkeye connection. So, it is what it is. So it was more fun to play trivia and kind of sit around and talk and have a good time than it was to watch football.
Yeah, it was fun. We had a nice time, and we'll do it again next year probably.
Yep. But speaking of football, we did have a game on Friday against Nebraska on Black Friday.
Yes.
Wasn't a good game to watch if you're an Iowa fan or a Nebraska fan for that matter. But, and I hate to use the cliche of Nebraska will Nebraska, but we called it.
Yeah.
That it's about, I texted you, I said, it's about time for the inevitable Nebraska turnover that loses them the game. And
you were a little early, but I said, no, it'll be a little bit later.
Yeah, I was a little early.
I think you were at the 4 or 5 minute mark, and I think I was at like the 2 minute mark.
Yeah, but ironically, the last 2 years, those turnovers happened within that 20, 22 second time frame left in the game.
Yeah,
and right around about the same part of the field too.
Yeah, I think last year we had the
interception was closer to the 50, and then we got a few yards. And but same result and same exact score.
Mm-hmm.
Drew Stevens redeemed himself from the year before when he had the yips and didn't get the opportunity to kick that game winner. So this year he got the opportunity, and boy, he could have drilled it from 60 some yards, but he just barely got it in that right upright.
He snuck it in.
But we'll take it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We talked about it yesterday. As much as you'd like to destroy Nebraska, it's almost better if you beat them the way we've done it, just because it rips their heart out of them. It just rips them up. And I've seen the comments on Twitter and message boards, all that today of, Nebraska outplayed you. You guys were terrible, blah, blah. No, stats are nothing. Stats mean squat. The only stat that matters is the one at the end of the game when the scoreboard shows who has more points. Yeah. I don't care. Iowa does this all the time where they play, I hate to say play down to the level of their competition, but sometimes they do. I wouldn't say that was the case with this game. I think Nebraska came in with the right game plan. They executed it exactly the way they should have.
Yep.
Nebraska will be Nebraska.
Mm-hmm.
And they committed the turnovers that, and honestly, the first one was an unforced turnover.
Yeah.
They did that themselves. If that guy hadn't touched that ball, they have the ball down at the 2-yard line and it's their ball.
Right.
So.
Yeah,
no, it is. You can outplay us all game long, and
they did.
Outstat us, whatever you want. But at the end of the game, if that scoreboard doesn't have you in the lead, it doesn't matter. You can win that, just like winning the recruiting year battles every year. Oh, well, we bring in this many 5-stars, but if you don't do it on the field, it doesn't really matter, does it?
No. Yeah, I think the most telling stat here, you could go through Iowa's, 5 first downs for the game, 0 for 10 on third down. But really the stat that I think probably if you're going to go by stats other than score, the stat that you really worry about is 2 turnovers to none.
Mm-hmm.
Iowa did not turn the ball over. and Nebraska did, and those 2 turnovers cost them 10 points. Actually,
6 points.
It cost them 6 points.
Yeah. Well, and then their lack of tackling cost them 7 more.
Yeah.
That's I think that's just Caleb Johnson being a beast.
Yep, probably.
So,
but yeah, I mean, if you look at the stats, I mean, Nebraska had double Iowa's yards in total yards. They had almost triple the rushing yards, double the time of possession. I mean, yeah, Nebraska won all the stats except for turnovers
and
score.
Yeah. Yeah. Congratulations, Nebraska. You outplayed us. You still lost.
This is the most Iowa win of the year.
This year. Yeah.
Yeah, of this year.
But yeah, like I said, congrats, Nebraska. You outplayed us. You still lost.
Yeah.
How's that feel?
Well, I'm not going to rip on the Nebraska fans because, there's going to be a day when things are going to happen and it's going to be role reversed.
But, based on the way that game, the things that happened prior to that game or during the pregame, that was poetic that they lost. The handshake thing is Bush League.
Yes.
Seeing the video of, okay, him walking through the Iowa pregame warm-up, that's Bush League. I don't care if he does it every time. That's crap. He shouldn't be doing that. He should stay out of that. He knows better. He's doing it to try to get under their skin, just like Iowa State did. Iowa State did the exact same thing, and I thought it was Bush League then, too. I would think it was Bush League if Iowa did it. I don't like it. I think you want to have a little, you can have a rivalry all you want, but you have to respect your opponent. And you have to respect that if they're going through their warm-ups, you don't walk through their warm-ups. And people complaining about, they had to have 5 security guards out there to guard their midfield. Well, 2 weeks ago or a week ago when you played out in California, you basically stomped all over their logo and your little pregame crap, and that caused controversy. You don't think Iowa noticed that and said, yeah, we're not going to have that?
Yeah, if you want to pray, go to the end zone.
Yeah. You've got 53.5 yards, or 63.5 yards, actually, or 63 yards, whatever it is, to go down there and pray on that half of your half of the field. All you want. Do your Hail Marys, whatever. I don't care.
Doesn't have to be in the middle.
You don't do it in the midfield.
Right.
And you don't walk through the other team's warm-ups. You stay away from them. That's what causes fights. That's what causes controversy. Look at yesterday with Ohio State and Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to plant the flag in the middle of the field. First of all, you're trying to plant the flag in a turf field. It ain't going to go in anyway, but that's stupid. So, but trying to do that, you're going to get into a fight.
Yep.
It's going to cause, and it happened to 4 times yesterday in rivalry games. So there needs to be something done about that. You can have pride in your team and be happy that you won, and you can run your flag across the field all you want and wave it around. Try to plant that in the middle of the field, you're going to get jacked. And I would have absolutely no issues with the opposing team dropping you like a sack of potatoes. It's crap.
Speaking of being dropped like a sack of potatoes, I thought what James Franklin did against Maryland was Bush League and disrespectful. You're up 38-7 with 4 seconds left, and you throw a touchdown pass. That, to me, is absolutely Bush League. That you have no respect at that point for your opponent, and it tells me that, I hope that some point that there's going to be some kind of karma. And there will be I hope they go out, and if they play in the Big Ten championship game, I hope they get rolled 56-0. And I hope that Oregon throws the 56 touchdown, the 56 points, they get a touchdown with 4 seconds left on a pass. That's, it would be poetic justice at that point. I don't think it's going to happen because I don't think Oregon would do that. But that just goes to show you what kind of personality that James Franklin has and what disrespect he has for some of the teams and some of the people in the Big Ten. And I'm sorry, you can say all you want about how you should have stopped him and all that stuff, and that's fine and dandy, but in my book, you don't do that. You don't do that. If you're Kirk Ferentz would never do that. There's way.
A lot of coaches that would never do
Urban
that.
Meyer wouldn't do that. The guy that coached Michigan State before Mel Tucker, D'Antonio, he'd never do that. None of those guys did. Woody Hayes wouldn't even do
Harbaugh
that.
might have done it. Harbaugh might have
Well,
done
Harbaugh is a different class of individual, and we all know who he is. But
I think if I looked at it, I could probably say that there's maybe 2 or 3 coaches in the Big Ten that would do it. I mean, counting Franklin, obviously, because he did it. There's a couple others that I think would do it if given the opportunity. I don't know for a fact, and I'm not going to name names because you can put that together however you want, whoever you think it might be. But I think there's a couple of them that would do it just to prove a point. But yeah, it's and a lot of coaches wouldn't do it. Saban wouldn't have done it.
No.
You know, Lane Kiffin probably. You know, some of those SEC teams would do it just out of spite because they are. Yeah, I get it, but Maryland and Penn State's not a bitter rivalry.
No.
You know, I get it if it was, you know, Mississippi did it to Mississippi State. It's still crap, but I would understand it more because it's a bitter rivalry. If Iowa did it to Iowa State or whatever, you know, not that Iowa would do it, but I can't get behind a game like that where, you know, Maryland has not been good since they've joined the Big Ten. I mean, yeah, they've had a couple of years where they've been over 500 in the conference or over 500 overall, and they won a bowl game here and there. But it's not like you're going out there and putting an exclamation point on Pitt. You know, Pitt was your rivals back when you were independent, and now you just refuse to play them. You know, so okay, that you're doing this to Maryland because why? You mad at somebody else, or you just are that individual? And I think in James Franklin's case, he's just that individual.
He's just that individual.
I've never had any respect for that guy.
No.
At any point.
No. No.
So,
all right. Well, so let's talk about what's next for Iowa.
Okay.
Obviously a bowl game. They do have a bowl game left. I did hear Caleb Johnson say he was going to go and not opt out. That's kind of a good news.
I've heard the same thing out of Nick Jackson.
Okay, good.
And it sounds like Higgins as well.
Good.
I can't say the same for guys like Castro or Schulte or any of those guys. I haven't heard anything on them, but those 3 players that I've heard are basically, we'll play. Yeah. We're playing.
Well, they love the university.
I would expect nothing less. Yeah.
They love the university and love Kirk Ferentz. That's what probably fuels most of that. You know, they figure that they'll have their time coming up in the NFL, and but I want to change it going up here forward. Also, Iowa has the transfer portal opening up on December the 9th. And Iowa had better, and I'm going to say this as succinctly, as bluntly as I can, they had better be diving into that head first. That they're whenever a quarterback goes in that's got any kind of stats at all that's decent, Iowa better be his first call. They need to get a quarterback and something and some defense, but they need to get it as soon as possible. They don't wait till the second transfer portal opens up in April. If you do that, you're just getting whatever's left. You're just getting the scraps off the table.
And let's put it into perspective. Let's make sure that we quantify this with Iowa. Will if Iowa jumps in and starts offering these guys, it's not Iowa's fault if they don't choose us.
Well, exactly.
Keep
but you've got to get in.
If you can't hit a home run if you don't swing the bat. And
exactly.
So you've got to swing the bat at some of these guys, metaphorically, and hope that maybe you can connect on a couple. Maybe you don't get the top guys, but you get guys that are serviceable that will at least push Brendan Sullivan and give you the glint of, hey, I've got 2 guys here. I don't know exactly for sure going into fall camp which one's the top guy right now, and that's a good thing because we know what we're getting with Sullivan. He's a 60% completion guy. He's a guy that can move around, but we haven't seen a whole lot of his sample yet thus far. I think we'll probably see more of it in the bowl game. I can't imagine any reason why he wouldn't be the starter in the bowl game, because if he's healthy enough to be the backup on Friday night, he'll be healthy enough to be the starter in late December or early January.
Right.
So, just remember that not getting these guys may not be a result of them not trying.
No, but they need to put 100% effort into it, right? The very first one, I mean, you need to get in there immediately. Don't wait. If you're going to, Kirk always talks about, I will evaluate the team at the end of the season. Well, if you do that, you're waiting way too long and you're just going to get what's left. You're going to get basically what you just got this year. You need to get in there early. You need to have, if it's not him, then get some of his other guys, some of his assistant coaches in there and get them contacting these kids and gauge interest. And if the kids are interested to come to Iowa, get them on a plane, get them here, show them the facility, let them know what's going on at Iowa, give them the pitch, tell them what's good and what isn't, or just sell them, get them on this team.
Yeah. And I think they're doing some of that. I've seen some, as people say, following guys on Twitter, so to speak. Kelvin Bell is doing that with a lot of guys that have hit the portal. But based on what I've seen, it's, obviously the guys that we have seen in the portal thus far are going to be teams that aren't, their season's done, or guys that we assume are going to go into the portal. Seasons are done, there's no bowl game, or Division 1A, 1AA guys, or Ivy League guys whose coaches have been fired because they can go into the transfer portal immediately, because I know they've got some guys from Kennesaw State that they've started following, but at least he's looking in that direction. He's starting to follow these guys, trying to get a gauge on, and from what I understand, Kelvin Bell is really good about identifying those guys and getting in on them early to try to evaluate. So from a defensive standpoint, from a defensive line standpoint, that seems to be kind of that in a cornerback position seems to be his go-to at this point. I think there was a couple of wide receivers on that list as well, but
they're going to have to.
Yeah, quarterback needs to be one, and I think wide receiver. If you're not going to count on these guys, and that's not to say these guys that are on the roster right now aren't going to improve. I think there's been improvement with guys throughout the year.
Yeah, there's been improvement, no question about it. But he's also going to have to sit these guys down and try to gauge who's going to transfer and who isn't. Who do you think is going to be, the list on the list to get out of Iowa rather than come into Iowa? So you're going to have to gauge, if you lose a bunch of guys in the secondary that aren't going to be back, TJ Hall and whoever else, I don't know. I don't know that he's going to enter his name, but I'm just giving an example. You're going to need to get in there and start getting cornerbacks in here. If you've got linebackers that are going to leave that they're going to graduate, well, then you've got the backups, and the backups aren't happy and they want to leave for a transfer portal. I don't know why they do that, because they're heir apparent. They're going to be the next one's in, but and why would you not want to play for Phil Parker? I mean, everybody does, right? But you're going to have to gauge at what level you're going to have guys leaving.
Yeah. And that's not to say you can't hit the JUCO ranks either. Don't forget the JUCO ranks.
Well, we tried that with Ontario Thompson, and it didn't work out. I mean, not that he's the only one, but
I don't understand that, because he was going to get more time. I don't know what.
I think he would have been playing right now a lot.
But you think about it, Amari Spivey was a JUCO transfer for us.
Yeah.
Brad Banks was a JUCO transfer.
Yep.
I did also see that all indications are that Caden Weegan will be back next year.
Oh, nice.
And that it seems like they tried to limit his touches, because he is kind of injury prone. Tried to limit his touches to keep him more available for special teams and return duties, which, based on his snap counts on offense, that makes sense.
Yeah.
I get it, and to have him back would be great. Special teams will be solid again next year. You've still got your kicker coming back. You've got a punter with his first year under his belt. You've got a return guy that's got experience, that is one of the better return guys in the conference, not only the conference but possibly the country. Your special teams is going to be decent. Now, granted, that's your skill position on your special teams.
The one cog you're going to have to replace that might be more difficult is Elkin, the snapper. I think he's a senior. Didn't he walk through the other day for senior day? That could be an issue, unless you've got somebody that can step right in and be good, because he was phenomenal.
I want to say I think Tyler Kluver's brother is one of the long snappers or potential long snappers on this team, and that would be good bloodlines to have.
If you've got somebody that can just step right in and be consistent, that's really all we need, because consistency is, you can't ask for perfection because it's not attainable, but consistency is attainable.
Yeah, and then you go back to the wide receivers. I think, in my opinion, I feel like it's been kind of difficult to evaluate the wide receivers over the last 4 years or so, just simply based on the poor quarterback play.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, you can evaluate them and say, well, they're not getting open. That's making the quarterback play look a little bit less stellar than what it could be. Is it also something along the lines of the route tree that Brian Ferentz had was just god awful, and that didn't allow them to get open? You're not utilizing these guys to their strength, or you've got guys like, Jacob Gill is a prime example, or, even a Caleb Brown would have been great as a slot receiver across the middle on slants that are open 90% of the time. And we don't utilize that. And I don't understand it. I don't know if it's the simple fact that you're too afraid to put guys in a position across the middle where they're going to get lit up. It's football. You're going to have to play it that way sometime. Other teams aren't afraid to do it. And they have their route concepts good enough that these guys aren't getting lit up. Yeah. So why are we not learning from that? But I think to say that wide receiver is a point of emphasis in the transfer portal, I'm not 100% sold on that. I'm 100% sold on you need to upgrade your quarterback position.
Oh, yeah.
Definitely. And I think, yeah, if you can get a quality wide receiver out of the portal, go for it.
Yeah.
But I think we have wide receivers on the team.
Vanderzee's decent. I mean, he got injured early, but he'll put on some weight, and he'll hit the weight rooms, and he'll get bigger and stronger and faster as he grows along. I mean, he was just a freshman, I think, an incoming a true freshman, and he played basically from day one.
Yeah. Jacob Gill is another one. He's stepped it up this year. Was our most productive wide receiver probably over the past 4 years since Emil Smith-Marset was here.
Yeah, and Jarriett Bowie got some playing time, the valuable playing time. Peyton Howard. Yeah, we got some guys that can step in. I just wish that we had the ability to throw them the ball more and to keep them, happy and just give them the opportunities to make plays. So I think a lot of those guys could be pretty terrific playmakers, but you got to get them the ball in a way that they can be playmakers. Fly patterns. If I think Cade didn't have the arm strength to get it to throw it. He'd have to throw it really early and hope that they can run underneath of it. Or you got Sullivan that has a better arm. I guess Jackson Stratton's the one guy that can throw the ball the furthest of all of them.
And they didn't let him throw it, really.
And they wouldn't let him throw the ball. I mean,
the one deep throw that he made on Friday was the sideline pass down about the 4-yard line, where I don't know how you don't call pass interference on that play. And then you turn around and call it on the other side later when the wide receivers got a hold of your defensive back's face mask, pulling him into him, and we're going to call pass interference there. That was very suspect. I thought some of the calls in that game were very, very suspect.
Well, I only had the one penalty, so I guess that the referees were cold and they wanted to get out of there just as fast as everybody else did, so they were going to hold on to their hankies unless they had to.
Yeah. So, but yeah, let's. Looking forward to the bowl game.
You want to talk about playoffs?
Let's talk a little bit about postseason prognostication, so to speak.
I'm going to let you run with this one.
So, based on the AP poll, which I know the AP poll is not the one that the playoff committee uses. It's not the CFB poll. But let's be honest, it influences them. They have found a way to put Alabama at 11, at 9-3. They are the highest ranked 9-3 team. There's a 10-2 team right below them, which is Miami, and then they have another 9-3 at South Carolina below them. My question is this: what makes Alabama more deserving than South Carolina? If you're going to throw a 9-3 team in there, there's probably a possibility that a 9-3 team makes it. Just based on the simple fact that you're only going to give one out of the Big 12. Because one of those teams is going to finish 11-2 and the other one's going to finish 10-3. Now, what makes that 10-3 team less deserving than a 9-3? In that case, I would say you have to look at strength of schedule, or you have to look at strength of record. Based on the teams that those Big 12 teams lost to, they don't compare. And that's just a simple fact. And I hate to say that. I'm sorry, Big 12, but your conference was pretty weak this year. Yeah, it's top heavy with what, BYU, Arizona State, Colorado, and Iowa State. But under a normal year, would any one of those teams have been up there? Probably not. I mean, and that's speculation. Speculation.
Yeah, you had a Colorado State team that lost to Nebraska, or Colorado team that lost to Nebraska.
Yeah, and it wasn't as close as it looked. So the question I have is just like I said, you've got a South Carolina team that lost to Alabama. Yeah, I get that. And they lost to an Ole Miss team that's 9-3. And they lost to, who was the other team? LSU, who's 8-4. So they lost to two teams that are 9-3 and a team that's 8-4. So not a losing record. So you could say, but yeah, they lost to Alabama. Does head-to-head really make that much of a difference in this day and age? And the time frame that happened was early? No, it doesn't. Because Alabama lost to a 6-6 Vanderbilt team, a team that finished 6-6. They also lost to a 7-5 Oklahoma team late in the year by 21. Okay, and then your third loss was what? Did they lose to Texas early or something? Or somebody? They lost somebody early.
Yeah,
I don't remember who it was. You beat Georgia. You beat South Carolina. So you've got some quality wins in there, but South Carolina's got some quality wins too. And if you're going to say, well, it's
two bad losses.
The SEC schedule is brutal. Well, South Carolina plays the SEC schedule too. The other thing about the SEC, and we've talked about it before, you're playing 4 out-of-conference games. And in most cases, when you look at some of those schedules, like especially like look at Ole Miss, they were 4 cupcakes. They were not playing high-quality teams in their 4. So you've already got basically 4 wins. And you only finished with 9. And one of those wins was against Mississippi State, who didn't win a game in the conference this year that I remember. So you really only won 4 quality games, and some of those probably weren't the higher quality wins, maybe an Arkansas or a Missouri. And now Missouri's 9-3. That's a decent win, but Arkansas is 6-6. Kentucky, you got to look at that and say, does Ole Miss deserve to be in it? No. What would make Ole Miss be more deserving than South Carolina? What makes Alabama more deserving than South Carolina? I'm not being an advocate for South Carolina because, honestly, we talked about it last week. Unless there's an extenuating circumstance, the 9-3 team probably shouldn't even be in it. What makes them more deserving than Illinois at 9-3? You can argue strength of schedule, whatever. They play an SEC schedule. I don't care. The SEC is down this year now that the fact that they're not able to pay their players, they have to pay them out front instead of under the table, and everybody else can do it too. The tables have evened out a little bit. And don't come at me with the, we're paying them. We haven't been doing it. You have been doing it. You've been doing it for years. Everybody knows it. You just don't get caught. And if you do get caught, Alabama State gets penalized for it. Just like Kansas doing it in basketball. Not a thing happens to you. The big boys cheat. Nothing happens to them. The middlings cheat. Everything happens to them. It's just a simple fact. Look it up. There's no denying that Alabama, Auburn, Kansas, all those teams, in their respective sports, get away with doing whatever they want. North Carolina, Duke, whatever. It's frustrating as a fan of college sports to have that happen. But I kind of get off on the tangent. But the point I'm trying to make is we're automatically putting Alabama in a position to make sure they get in, because they're putting them at 11th. And now the committee is saying, well, the AP puts them at 11 and the coaches poll puts them at 11 or 12. We kind of have to feel obligated to put them there too, because, it is Alabama and they do, but then you're using a bias to put them in there with maybe another deserving team. What makes them less deserving or more deserving than Miami? Miami lost 2 games one to Georgia Tech, which you say what you want, but Georgia should have lost to Georgia Tech. And then you lost your last game to a 9-3 Syracuse team on the road by 4? Why is Miami automatically dropped to 13th and not even in the picture? Because they're not in the ACC championship now. what makes them less deserving than Alabama? That's the point I'm making, is people want to put SEC teams on a pedestal because the conference historically has been the premier conference in the country. Most years. Not every year, but most years. And that's where the national championships have come from over the last 10 or 15 years. Most of them have come from the SEC. Well, when you throw two SEC teams into a 4-team playoff, it's pretty easy to get your team in there sometimes. I'm just saying, don't automatically just put them on a pedestal and say, well, it's Alabama and they should be, their strength of schedule, they play SEC team, blah, blah, blah. Why are they more deserving than Miami at this point? Why would you say that the ACC should only get one team in out of Clemson and SMU? When in reality, let's say Clemson wins, is SMU automatically out? SMU's only loss would be to BYU, who is a ranked team. And then a loss in the conference championship, which is supposed to not count against them, according to the playoff committee. So why would they be less deserving? Why is, and they would be at 8 right now. Would they drop 5 spots to put them at 13 to keep them out? Very good possibility. And that would move Alabama up. So I don't like the bias that goes into it and the pandering that ESPN does to, they were proclaiming Georgia, if they won, regardless of what happens in the championship, they're in when they play Georgia Tech. And I was like, don't be presumptuous here. But maybe they know more. The script's been leaked or whatever. I don't know. They know more than we do. Well, like I said, it's a money draw. They want to get the teams that will make the money in there.
I don't want to hammer this subject a whole lot more, but we talked about this yesterday on our way to Iowa City. Why couldn't the playoff committee just do a simple, the top 2 teams, the teams that play in the championship are automatically in. So you'd have 4, you have the SEC, ACC, Big 10, and Big 12. So you'd have the 2 teams that play in the championship game. So you got a total of 8 there.
So there's your top 4 seeds. The top 4 seeds are the ones that are in the championship games that win it.
Yeah. So then you've got 4 places that you can put the best of the rest.
The group of 5 and the 3 at larges.
If it's Notre Dame, and I would really advocate for Notre Dame joining a conference, but that subject's been beat on so many times, I'm not going to go into it. But yeah, let's say you've got a team that virtually tied for the second team in, but by tiebreakers, that other team got the chance to go. Well, maybe they would be a candidate for one of the 4 at-larges. Let's say in this case, it would be like an Ohio State, because Penn State jumped over them for the championship game. So in this case, this year would be like, you would probably want to see about maybe putting Ohio State in. And maybe you'd want to think about putting Tennessee in. Because Tennessee's not playing in the SEC championship game, but they would have enough. They only have 2 losses, so you'd think they'd go in. Then you look at maybe a group of 5, like Notre Dame would be another one. So then you're only looking at one more team. So it'd be like a Boise State this year. So there's your 12. And then I think what's going to end up happening is you're going to have people that are going to be upset with that format. You're going to say, well, why don't we just up it to 16 or 24?
Well, if you've got a 24, that's the same format that the FCS does. And I wouldn't have a problem with that.
No, I wouldn't either. Of course, more football. That's never a bad thing.
Yeah, that's never a bad thing in my book. Drop the conference championships and just play that extra week of those 24 teams instead of, and if you want to do it that way, you say, okay, let's take the top 24 teams in that conference championship game, and we'll say the rest of the teams are going to play another game. So you
give them a bye, basically.
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, teams that don't make the playoffs. Let's say you've got your 24 teams, right? It's kind of like the NIT, but I think somebody's talked about it before in the past, where your conference championship week, your championship game should be on the Sunday, and your other conference games, which would be like, so you have 1 and 2 playing against each other, right? So then you have 3 and 4, 5 and 6, so forth and so on, all down the line, and those teams play each other, and that's just a an extra game. Maybe that's one of those where you don't play that. That's your 9th conference game, maybe, let's say. And that way the Big Ten can now get 4 out of conference games and be on par with the SEC, because the SEC plays 4 out of conference games. They only play 8 conference.
Oh, I'm thinking that you could take a bye week out too and move the schedule back so that you're not playing well into December.
Mm-hmm.
You could have your end of your season being on the 16th or whatever this week or this year, or the 23rd. And then you start playing your, because I mean, you're going to go from 24 to 12 first week anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're down to 12. So now this is where we're back
right now
where we are.
You're not going to go from 24 to 12. Your top 4 are going to get a bye. You're going to go to 24 to.
But don't do it that way. Do it like this.
You kind of have to, because you can't do 24 to 12 to 6 to 3. You don't have the numbers don't work out right.
Then you'd have okay, so yeah, all right, so let's give the top
8 teams basically have to get a bye.
Yeah. So now you're down to 16. So then you could go 16-8.
Well, which the top 8 teams would be more than likely your conference champions and your conference runner-ups.
Yeah, we could do that. That would work.
I mean, the top 8 seeds in the FCS get a bye. And then the other 16 teams play it out to get down to 8. So now you're down to 16 total. And then you do 16-8, 4, 2, 1. It's a simple formula.
I like that. I don't know why the NCAA hasn't already thought of that, because it doesn't seem like it took us very long to figure that one out.
Well, because the NCAA did think about it. It's what they do in the FCS, and they just don't want to do it on us because the bowls are too big of a money thing.
Yeah.
I mean, you can almost get rid of the bowls at this point because there's so many of them. Maybe if you want to play an extra game, you let you play out these. You seed everybody. You take the top 24, and those are in your playoffs. Those are the only ones that have an opportunity to play for a championship. The rest of the teams, you just start scheduling. And you just say, and this is just spitballing. This is not something that I've really even given thought to. But then everybody has that opportunity of there's your 13th or 14th game or whatever the case may be. It takes place of your bowl games. They have them on campus. Gives more money to those individual teams. And then those 24 teams, it makes more sense. But I guess I get it with contracts and whatnot with the bowls, all these, especially the Big Ten, where you have that bowl revenue sharing across the 18 teams. You lose that. And now in the day and age of paying the players by the university as employees, that might be even more contingent to be getting more bowl games. Who knows?
Well, let's talk about these. Let's talk about these bowl games. These lesser bowls, these non-playoff bowls. I mean, you're gonna have a lot of kids that are gonna opt out, most likely.
Yep.
So if you're ReliaQuest, or if you're Duke's Mayo Bowl or whatever, and you're the sponsor of this, and you're paying a lot of money to have your naming rights, and you're a company that wants to pay for an ad during that game so that they can get as many people out there that watch the game as possible. Well, if you've got kids that are opting out, people aren't going to watch that. They're going to be like, okay, so what am I watching here? A bunch of second string and third string guys play. And then all of a sudden your viewership goes down because people don't want to watch it. Your in-house attendance is poor, and it just becomes a money losing situation. Why would you want to continue to do that if the kids are gonna? So that I don't know if there's a solution to that. If you make the kids stay through and then they get hurt, then that's a bad thing. There's a lot of that needs to be looked at, and there needs to be some compromises made. But when you have kids that are just opting out, like last year there was a ton of opt-outs, and the bowls at that point are just kind of a blah, who cares type of situation. I mean, I'd love to sit there and watch some good games, but I'm watching kids that don't play. I mean, not that that's not a good thing, good for them, but it doesn't interest me to watch a third string kid come out and play quarterback because the top guy went to the NFL or is going to the NFL and wants to concentrate on his pre-camp whatever for the NFL, and the second string guy doesn't want to play, or he said, the heck with this, I'm transferring.
Yeah.
I guess it's just, why are we doing it? And, if I'm the sponsor and I'm looking at this, I'm saying, why am I paying money for this?
Yeah.
But that's a whole different subject. We talked about that another time. We probably ought to need to move on to basketball. Yep. There's not a lot to cover with basketball, and we'll run through it fairly quickly. Iowa men only had one game this week, and they played University of South Carolina Upstate. And that was not a good game, not even a close game. Iowa ran away with that one really early. It was 110-67.
77.
77. I don't know why I had 67. Yeah, you're right. It was 77. I remember. 110-77. I was led by Brock Harding with 20 points and 10 assists. That's his double-double. I don't think he's done that before.
No.
Josh Dix had 7 rebounds also. Riley Mulvey had 11 points on 4 of 4 shooting. You didn't see him much in his career. Drew Thelwell had 15 points, 3 boards, 3 assists. Iowa shot 60.6% from the field, including 46.2% from three-point line and 12 of 15 from free throw line. So, yeah, they had a good shooting night. USC-Upstate, not a good team. No. We just, let's just face it, they were not good. We start conference season Tuesday. They take on Northwestern, who's 6-2. Northwestern's losses are to Dayton and Butler. And then next Saturday, they go to Michigan. And Michigan is 6-1 with their only loss to Wake Forest. So conference season's beginning, and then it'll go right back to non-conference until January, and then back to conference again. It's kind of a weird fluke that they do that every year now. Any thoughts on the men's team?
Just not a good effort from a team that's beat up right now. Losing Traore 2 minutes into his time, and probably having him out for a week or two at least is not ideal.
No,
especially when you're starting conference play. Cooper Koch being out is, I didn't even realize he was going to be out, but it sounds like that's another situation that might be a lingering thing. I didn't even know he got hurt. Evan Braun's as a backup center, I didn't even know he was going to be out. I don't know what his status is. So right there, you've got 3 guys out of basically your top 11 that are not available to you. So you get a guy like Riley Mulvey stepping in, and Riley Mulvey played a good game.
Yeah,
it's still South Carolina Upstate.
Right.
It's not Michigan. It's not Northwestern. But if he can build on that, his confidence, that's great. And I hope he does.
Yeah.
And I'd love to see it because he has persevered and he has stuck it out. He didn't transfer. He's committed to the program at this point, and I'd like to see him. Actually, I'd like to see him flourish, really. I mean, I don't want to see any Iowa player not flourish, but I'm really rooting for him to be serviceable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he's basically bided his time. He's available, and I think that he should get more minutes based on what he's done. He was 4 for 4 the other night, had 11 points. I don't think that's bad. Obviously, like you said, the competition, not good, but I think it still earns you the time.
Yeah.
I don't know. It'll be a rough week, I have a feeling.
Yeah.
They might get by Northwestern, but I don't think they're beating Michigan up there.
Well, and it's nice to actually open that Big Ten play at home for a change.
Yeah. Yeah, usually go on the road to Purdue, it seemed like, every year.
Purdue, or you got to go to Wisconsin or something like that, or Michigan State. Their conference hasn't been kind on their opening weekend of Big Ten play to Iowa over the last few years.
Yeah.
I can't remember. I mean, we might have had a year where we were 1-1, but usually we're 0-2 going into that January stretch. And that's tough to come back from sometimes.
Yeah, it doesn't get any easier after these 2 games. You got Iowa State coming to town.
Yeah.
And, they're a
still got
top
Utah
10
on the
team.
schedule.
Yeah.
Coming up.
Yeah.
So.
It's going to get drastically more difficult as we go along. There might be a cupcake just distributed in there somewhere between now and the first of the year, but Yeah, it's going to get more difficult, and we're going to see what this team's really made of going forward. So, you can look at Iowa and think that they've improved a bunch from the year before, and maybe they have. But when they start getting into conference play, we'll see just exactly how much they have improved or not improved.
Yeah.
However it works out.
Yeah, and it's like I said, it'll be tough with
injuries.
At least 2 of those 3 guys out.
Yeah, and then you got Josh Dix and Peyton Sanford that have had wrist injuries.
Mm-hmm.
That
I don't think they've been 100%. There hasn't been a game that they've been 100% yet.
Yeah. Maybe this week off that they've had since the last game coming up to the next game, maybe that'll help a little. Yeah. Depends on how much they work out, I guess, and things don't get better if you keep continually working them. But you want to transition to the women's team now?
Sure.
They did play 2 games this week down in Cancun. It was a tournament down there. It was just 2 games. Fly in, play 2 games, fly back. And not hard to go to Cancun, I wouldn't imagine. But they are now 8-0 on the season after the 2 wins down in Cancun. Their first win down there was believe it or not, a little harder fought game than what you'd think it would be over Rhode Island, 69-62. They were without Lucy Olson, their point guard and senior. So that had some effect on them, I think, early in the game. I think they were missing her. But they did put it together. They were paced by Addie O'Grady's 18. And Sydney Falter came in and got 9 rebounds, which was important. Iowa shot 52% from the field and 35% from three-point line and 76% from the free throw line. Taylor Stremlow got the start at point. And she was backed up by Aaliyah Guyton, who in her second game scored 7 points on 2 of 3 shooting and 2 of 3 from the three-point line. So all of her shots were coming from the three-point line, except for she did went 1 of 2 from the free throw line. She got fouled apparently, and she went 1 of 2. 69-62, you got to get out of there with a win when you've got one of your main characters, one of your main players hurt. Just take it for what it is. Get in, get the win, get out of there. Friday night, they played a not great BYU team. They were not good shooters. They did not shoot the ball well. They beat BYU 68-48. Iowa was led by Hannah Stolke's 16 points. Sydney Falter did have another good rebounding game. She had 10. Iowa shot 47%, not quite as not good as the night before, but they shot better from three-point line at 48%, and they did shoot better free throws at 82%. Leah Guyton went 4. Did I say what? Who did I say?
Again, without Lucy Olson.
Oh, yeah. Again, without Lucy Olson. She didn't play again. Aaliyah Guyton went 4 of 6 from the field, including 3 of 3 from the three-point line. She had 4 rebounds and 11 points. They've got the week off, and they will play next Saturday against Tennessee in Brooklyn, New York, and that is a 6 p.m. start. Check your local listings. I don't know what game or what channel that is on. So there you go.
ESPN.
I would imagine, or FS1 or something. But yeah,
actually, I think you're right. I think it is FS1.
I don't know. I was just throwing out a name. Here's a reminder. Next week, we're planning on having a special guest on to talk about Iowa wrestling. We're hoping that goes well, and I think that everything is on schedule as it is. But if something does come up, we'll have to adjust to that. But right now, that's what the plan is. And I'm not sure that'll probably be a half an hour, maybe segment. But we'll hit the Iowa games first, and we'll go from there. Maybe we'll have bowl news by then. Not sure, but I don't know. Other than that, I don't have anything else. Did you want to go through merch? You've got a shirt on.
Yeah.
Yeah, t-shirt
still available. 10% off right now until Christmas at our store. You see the QR code popping up on the screen throughout this video. Pause it, take a screenshot of that or whatever. Like I said,
check it out.
We're not out to profit. We're just trying to maintain the status quo with this channel and get our name out there a little bit. Would love it if you're looking for wanting to help promote us. That would be great. Word of mouth also is great.
Mm-hmm.
You can always check us out on any of the social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, TikTok. We're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube. Obviously, you're watching us here on YouTube.
Give us a like and subscribe too.
Yeah, absolutely. Let us know that you like what we talk about, or hey, we throw some controversial things out there. Feel free to, if you want to call us out on it and say that you don't like what we say, that's fine. But have some stats or have some valid data to back it up. Don't just come at us with the with this team played this person's schedule. I can throw those out any day I want. Say, this team plays this schedule, they would be this record, because I don't have to validate it and I don't have to have the facts to back it up. So come at us with the facts to back it up, and maybe you change our mind. Who knows? Or we'll not necessarily call you out on the next podcast, but we'll mention you and say, hey, had a valid point. This team has a better strength of record or strength of schedule, and that should play into it more. I'm open to that.
Yeah.
Just try to leave out the so-and-so played this schedule. They wouldn't have 5 wins. Well, you can't predict that. You don't know that. I would have, if that was the case, then I would have said, based on Indiana's schedule going into the year, I had them with 3 wins. They got 11.
Yeah.
So, anybody can play that speculative game of, if they played this schedule, they would lose this many games. Well, you just don't know. That's why they play the games. Play them on paper, then yeah, maybe that's right. But on the field, totally different. You don't know what injuries are going to take out and what guys are going to have bad games on what days. That's why they play the games.
Yeah. I mean, Ohio State, Michigan yesterday. Who would have thought?
Yeah.
Michigan would have beat Ohio State, especially at Ohio State. Right.
Yeah. So it happens. Upsets happen. That's why they're called upsets. Look at Boise State and Oklahoma back in the Fiesta Bowl. Nobody gave Boise State a chance.
Shock the world.
Nobody gave TCU a chance to beat Michigan 2 years ago either. They did.
Yeah.
Anyway, shall we end on a question of the week? I think you had a question this week.
Oh no, I thought you were going to run your question.
We can do that. I don't care. It's up to you. Mine was just at this point, bowl prognosticators are picking their bowl projections based on pre-conference championship games. I've seen Iowa in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Ole Miss. I've seen them in the ReliaQuest Bowl against Missouri.
South
the
Carolina.
Duke's Mayo Bowl against Clemson. And there's another one Music City Bowl against Missouri. And there's another one I saw out there where they played some bowl against Boston College. I just kind of curious as to what bowl game and what matchup as Hawkeye fans would you most like to see?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be one that there's out there. If there's one that you think like, hey, there's a good chance that Texas A&M is dropped low enough that maybe Iowa and Texas A&M is a game. I think I've seen that one as well at some places. So give us your thoughts on what you think a good bowl matchup for Iowa would be, or what you would want to see a matchup and what bowl game you'd like to see him play in. Obviously, let's be realistic and don't say like I'd like to see him play in the national championship game against so-and-so, because that's not realistic this year. Let's be realistic of where they're at, what the other teams are at, and see what would be your matchup for this year going into that bowl game. Pretty simple. You don't have to Google anything. You just have to use your brain or use your heart and your head or whatever. Wherever your loyalties lie.
And
let's put it that way.
Who knows, maybe next week when we get on here, we'll actually know the answer to that question.
Yeah.
Maybe we will, maybe we won't.
So that's all I've got.
Yeah.
8-4, not where we wanted, but we'll take it, I guess. And like I said, we could be 6-6 like Nebraska and celebrating being 6-6. I wouldn't be celebrating 6-6 myself, but I guess we just have to evaluate where Nebraska is. All right. With that, we'll say end on a Go Hawks, and we'll see you next week.
Go Hawks.
Go Hawks.